We are all aware of the economic losses fire disasters have visited on the global economy, and that of Ghana in particular. The fires that gutted the Amazon forest is still fresh in our minds, with its consequential global environmental impacts. Such occurrences, apart from visiting shocks on the global economy, aggravates the incidence of climate change and carries its effects to a different dimension. Worst of all, fire disasters can affect the core of our national identity by eroding away our shared cultural heritage. These are some of the reasons why this celebration with the theme, 60 Years of Existence, the role of Ghana National Fire Service in national development, is dear to the heart of NADMO and the General Board. Processes for managing fire disasters are steps done to protect people, property, and forest areas. It is never an ending cycle of work that necessitates an effective strategy. This management strategy promotes early warning and monitoring systems, increased awareness raising, enhanced fire monitoring, decreases in fire intensity and outbreaks, property damage, injury, and mortality rates. Clearly, effective fire management requires steps and actions we have got to increase, as well as trends we need to decrease. The National Disaster Management Organization emphasizes that effective preparation can help mitigate and lessen the effects of fire disasters. Effective fire management synchronizes the activities of numerous government and non-governmental agencies in the light of each agency's unique functions. The system of fire and disaster management works more effectively with stakeholder participation. Each stakeholder agency operating as a key component within that system. The system, however, operates within a delicate balance such that each stakeholder's role is recognized and supported. Consequently, as a system, when one component fails, the whole system suffers. It is like the whole human body. So when one fails, the whole system suffers. It is our collective responsibility, therefore, to make the system work without a fail. NADMO, as a coordinating agency, has the responsibility to ensure that the disaster management system functions and remains very productive. This we do by promoting joint training activities and simulation exercises. Indeed, we engage the Ghana National Fire Service in our simulation designs, monitoring, and the implementation. We also do this by engaging the Ghana National Fire Service and other collaborators in the preparation of emergency response plans, such as the contingency plan and national standard operating procedures, the SOPs. In addition to being a coordinating agency, the NADMO Act, Act 927/2016, Section 1, Subsection 3M, enjoins NADMO to provide first-line response in the event of a disaster. NADMO, therefore, is obliged to do other forms of emergency response other than provision of relief items. Most people know NADMO to be the provider of relief items. They know that when you call NADMO, it's all about relief items. But today, I'm here to tell you all that NADMO does more than giving relief items. This notwithstanding, NADMO recognizes that expertise of the fire service and other emergency services agencies, NADMO is obliged to do other forms of response other than provision of the relief. And this notwithstanding, NADMO recognizes the expertise of the fire and other emergency services. NADMO has always transferred command anytime the relevant agencies appear on scene. For instance, when we are called upon as the first responders and it's about fire, as soon as the fire service arrives, we transfer all command to the fire service because we don't have the expertise to handle such incidents. We have always collaborated with these agencies with the ultimate goal of saving lives and property. Now that earthquake threats looms high in Ghana, we recommend that NADMO, the police and the armed forces take strong interest in search and rescue training, as estimated 1 million casualties will be completely overwhelming looking at our current national capacity. We entreat the Ghana National Fire Service to support such training arrangements. NADMO has the adage that prevention pays, and also that disaster risk reduction is everybody's business. For all of us to achieve goals 11 and 13 of the SDGs and work towards national development, the watchword is collaboration. We need to collaborate with all institutions, all relevant institutions, to achieve the SDGs. Let us acknowledge that we have complementary roles to play in this fight against fire and other forms of disasters, and that each organization's input or contribution is important, respected, and cherished by all actors. In this regard, NADMO wishes to assure the Ghana National Fire Service of its eagerness, as usual, to cooperate with this to achieve all these goals. Any goals set by the Ghana National Fire Service, NADMO assures our eagerness to help the goals be achieved. However, we have to acknowledge that the work of the Ghana National Fire Service is quite tremendous and energy sapping without the required resources. We of NADMO, as the coordinating agency, are pleading that more financial and material resources be channeled to the Ghana National Fire Service towards effective fire management to ease the challenges that characterize effective management. On behalf of the National Disaster Management Organization, I wish to say Ayiko to the Ghana National Fire Service on its 60th anniversary. Thank you.
I believe we can do it better for Madam. She has done well by giving us that presentation. You know, what ruffled our feathers was the fact that fire service has to be adequately resourced. But you are reserving my comments. I'll give you the comment during the plenary section. Thank you. We will take the next presentation from the president of the Ghana Electrical Contractors Association, JECA, and to help me do the reading of his profile is my co-MC, 81 Alex Kenate. Are you around? All right, so quickly I'll get it done. Our next presentation is going to be given by one gentleman. He is an astute electrical safety and energy efficiency enthusiast, electrical wiring inspector, a master thermographer, electrical skill trainer, an examiner, and a successful electrical and solar PV contractor. He is currently the president of the Ghana Electrical Contractors, a member of the advisory board of the Ministry of Energy, a member of the technical committee at the Ghana Standards Authority, a member of the Energy Commission's panel that interview and certify electrical wiring inspectors. He is the CEO of MS Plus Limited and Safe Test Services. He is the recipient of several awards. Key among them is a certificate of honor from the Energy Commission of Ghana, the 48th Engineers Training School of the Ghana Armed Forces, the Best Electrical Wiring Inspector for the year 2015, and the Best Electrical Contractor for the year 2023. He has a wealth of experience and knowledge of Ghana's electrical industry, and that makes him the go-to person for this particular topic. Ladies and gentlemen, I have the singular honor to invite onto the stage Mr. Awal Sakib Mohammed, the president of the Ghana Electrical Contractors Association, to give us a presentation on electrical safety practices in Ghana, a vital component of fire and emergency management. Shall we welcome him with a big round of applause?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, the Chief Fire Officer. All protocols observed. Mr. Chairman, please permit me to add my voice in congratulating the Ghana National Fire Service on their 60th anniversary. And also permit me to say that my presentation is a bit technical, but I'll try as much as possible not to bore you with too much technicalities. So, electrical safety practices in Ghana are vital components of fire and emergency management. Now, one cannot speak about electrical safety in Ghana without looking at the history. The first government-sponsored electricity distribution in Ghana started in the year 1914 in Sekondi. And then 14 years later, it got extended to Takoradi. Between 1928 to 1965, several interventions were put in place to try and extend electricity to different parts of the country. Now, the completion of Akosombo Dam in 1965 spurred the distribution, the transmission and distribution of electricity to different parts of the country. And today, as we speak, Ghana has about 86% access to electricity. And that is one of the best in the sub-Saharan Africa. And as much as we are having, the more access you have for electricity, the higher the danger. And so, can you help me, please? Okay. So, my presentation will look at the history, I'll look at the regulation, I'll look at the electrical systems, I'll look at types of electrical system protection, electrical safety hazard, incident solutions, and conclusion. I'm aware that I have about 10 to 15 minutes to finish my presentation. I'll try and manage the time. Now, the history, like I said, we got our power, our electricity, first government-sponsored electricity this in 1914. And then after Akosombo was established, we came up with several regulations, knowing that the old adage that goes like, electricity is a good servant, but a very bad master. Several regulations were promulgated. Unfortunately, most of the regulations centered on the generation and distribution of electricity. It never really looked at the utilization aspect of electricity. It was up until 2011 that the Parliament of Ghana passed the Electrical Wiring Regulation, LI 2008, into law. Now, what that law sought to do was to do two things. What that law sought to do was to do two things: to ensure the safety of life and property from the dangers or hazards that arises from the utilization of electricity. So that was basically what the law sought to cure. Now, this year is the 10th anniversary of the promulgation of that regulation. The Energy Commission was given the mandate to implement the law, and in the implementation of the law, they came up with a certification program where they certified people to be constructors, which is electrical installers, and some were certified to be inspectors. Now, every effective electrical system must first of all be designed. And so the role for the design is still with the engineer. And you know there are two engineering entities in Ghana, which is the IET, Institution of Electronic Technology, and then Ghana Institution of Engineers. So these are the two bodies mandated by law to issue certification for practicing engineers. Now, that role is still with the engineers. But unfortunately, most of the premises or most electrical systems you find in Ghana are not designed. The electrician today is his own designer. He goes to the premises and do the marking and then places the boxes at various points and then run the cables, and then when he's done, service is connected. But coming into force of the law kind of curtailed the power of the electrician. Now, the electrician is subjected to some checks and balances. Today, if you complete electrical wiring in Ghana, you are not supposed, the key word is you are not supposed to be connected to the national grid until you follow some procedures. Now, one of them is that you must engage an inspector to inspect the premises and then issue what we call a test report. You need to present that test report to ECG to facilitate the service application. The reason why I said you are not supposed to, you know, the system we find ourselves, people are still able to find their way to still get their premises connected without going through due process. So the challenge is still high. Okay, so electrical system basically is defined as an electrical power system. Is a network of electrical components deployed to supply, transfer, and use electric power. An example is the electricity that we are connected to in our various homes, right? So this is a classical example of a well-protected electrical system. So you find this is a residence. The residence picks electricity supply from the nearest distribution network. So you see here. Okay, so you see a distribution transformer. Now the building picks a supply from the pole to the building and it terminates into an energy meter. Now from the energy meter, it goes to a distribution board. That ash box, that's the distribution board. Some people call it consumer units, others call it power box and all that. But the professional name is distribution board. And then from the distribution board, it goes to a particular circuit, which is a socket circuit. So each time you plug an appliance to this socket, you have completed what we call an electrical system. So electrical system is not just the wiring within the premises. It includes the source of supply to the premises. So now, this box is also has some, where there's that green and yellow tennis. So this box is connected to ground. So technically what it means is that every metallic part of the building is connected to the ground. Now at the substation is also expected to be connected to the ground. So when these things have been properly done, then we can ensure that we have an effective and efficient electrical systems. Okay. So now, to have an effective electrical system, there are different types of electrical system protection. We have the TT system, we have the TNS system, we have the TNCS, we have the IT. But unfortunately, in Ghana, we practice what we call the TT system. And TT system happens to be the poorest form of protection. And it is simply because here, when you go around, you find that all our electricity distribution is overhead. If you go out there, you won't even see the distribution network. All you see is maybe a meter mounted on a building. So they are able to deploy different types of protection systems, the effective ones for that matter. So ours is what we call the TT system. The TT system, move on. The TT system, again, move on. Again. So this is a classical example of the TT system. So you pick the phases, which is line 1, line 2, or line 1, line 2, line 3 to your premises. If your building is, if you are connected to a 3-phase system. Now within your premises, I'm sure you are familiar with a very popular term called earthing. For some of you who have put that building before, the electrician told you stories about earthing and all that. Now you pick the phases to your premises. And then from your premises, you are expected to connect to do what we call earthing. And the earthing is basically you are connecting all exposed conductive part of the building to the general mass of earth. And this yellow, green and yellow cable has a relationship with the substation, earthing. Wherever your building is located, that metal rod that is connected at your premises into the ground has a relationship with the substation earthing. Another rod connected at the substation. So this is a classical example of what we call an impedance system. So when the substation is connected to earth and your premises is also connected to earth, we have what we call a loop impedance. The impedance begins from wherever you are plugging your appliance to the rod that you have buried to the ground through the general mass of earth all the way to the substation or the closest PME earthing of the network back to the same point. That is what forms a loop impedance system. So for the TT system, your life is dependent on this network. So how low or effective that system is ensures your safety. If it is poor, then it means your life is in danger. If it is effective, it means that you are somehow protected. Now, all of us here are familiar with electrical hazard. The popular ones are the overloads, the short circuit, the earth fault, and all that. We know them. And I'm sure if we are asked to mention them, we all know, and we have images of overloads of systems. So, move. So these are basic examples of overload, right? All of us are aware. So you find that a particular circuit is designed to carry a certain amount of load, but unfortunately, for one reason or the other, people are able to use multi sockets and all that and overload it. Yes. Okay. Okay. So the hazards that I just mentioned, short circuit, overload, and all that, they are key in fire prevention or electrical safety for that matter. Now, one very critical safety concern that engineers have not averted their minds to is what we call the loop impedance. Now, the loop impedance, like I mentioned earlier, is a complete path. If you go to the substation must be earthed by all means. It helps stabilize the voltage. It helps give you lower voltages for people who do not have three-phase load. But unfortunately, the current practice is that you go around the country or around the town and you find that most of these cables that are supposed to be connected to the ground to ensure our safety have been cut. You agree that most of our distribution transformers are pole mounted. Now, every pole mounted transformer has two types of protection. It has a protection against lightning strike, and it also has protection, it also have what we call neutral earthing. And that neutral earthing is supposed to bring the voltage to a level that is usable in our premises. That is 230 volt. Now, when this cable is connected, not only are your appliances at the risk of getting damaged, anytime your appliance develops a fault, instead of the fault current being able to complete the cycle to cause your protective devices to trip, it won't happen. The current will go to the ground. It will travel to the nearest substation. Unfortunately, the path is not complete because this cable, the one in the yellow, that is supposed to be the neutral earthing of that substation. And this picture, I took it myself. It's not an internet picture. I have another one. Move. I have tons of such pictures. And I know someone will ask the question, so what are you doing about it? Okay, I'll answer that later. So, you see, the cable is supposed to go to the ground so that in the event that your appliance develops fault, the fault current will pass through the general mass of earth and be able to return to cause your protective devices to trip. The only responsibility your electrician has is what he has installed. He has the ability to do the best of earthing and all that. But whether the substation earth is there to complete the path, the electrician doesn't have the ability to do that. And currently, the practice with regard to the implementation of the law is not touching on that. And that is a very risky thing that we are doing at the moment. So, now this cable is disconnected. There's an earth fault within your premises. Your electrician has done the best of work. What will happen is that if the earth resistance is low, the expectation is that the earth resistance should be as close to zero as possible. And any figure divided by zero is infinite, right? If you divide any voltage, which is 230 for single phase system, by zero, the result is what? Infinity. So that is what happens. If your earth resistance is so low, the expectation is that the least for your protective device should do what? Should trip. Unfortunately, it will cause a very high current to flow to ground. Because this cable is not there, what will happen is that it will delay. And within the period that it delays, the cable, because the current is so high, will not be able to withstand that high current. It is an instant disaster. So, it calls for some measures to be taken, to be put in place. So, I say, what are the solutions? I mean, for me, I think that the solution to electrical safety is a shared responsibility between various stakeholders. Key among them is the facility owner. Because the facility owner, you have a responsibility. The regulator has a responsibility. The utility provider has your responsibility. And ultimately, the citizenry. Now, the facility owner, what is your responsibility? Your responsibility is to do the right thing. your responsibility to engage the right person, a professional, a certified professional for that matter, and then you ensure that you have continuous predictive and preventive maintenance of what? Of your premises. Now, the enforcement, the regulators. We have different regulators when it comes to the electrical industry. Key among them, earlier on you mentioned, is the Energy Commission. Now, the Energy Commission has the responsibility to ensure strict enforcement of various regulations, including the LI 203. Now, all the regulations and that electrical practitioners work with, not just the one for the premises, the one for the distribution of electricity, the one for the generation and all that is manned, is regulated by the Energy Commission. So they do not have the responsibility just to ensure that our premises have been done well, but must also ensure that the distribution networks have been properly done, and then they undergo regular predictive and preventive maintenance activities. Now, there's also a law that is key in ensuring safety of premises, and that is the law on electrical accessories. It's been long, I'm told it's currently with the Parliament. Now, the electrical wiring regulation that we speak about only focuses on electrical wiring on premises. The protective device, the right type of cable, earthing and all that. That alone does not ensure safety. The electrical wiring doesn't cover the appliance. So if this appliance is faulty and you plug it to the system, if the system is properly designed, then your protective devices will trip. But if the appliance is not of the right quality, you'll still be exposed to danger. So there's currently a law in Parliament that is seeking to come up with what we call electrical regulation on electrical accessories. Because, you see, most of the time, the focus has always been on cable. You can buy a cable made of gold. If you buy a poor socket, you still have the issues that we are having. You can buy the best of cable. If you don't buy the right protective device, you still have issues. So, it goes beyond electric cable. Electric cable is kind of the heart of the wiring. Everything within the circuit must be of the right type, must be of good quality. And I'm making certain observations recently, and I know it cuts across. If you have taken note, a lot of time you plug appliances, the best of appliance. You can go and buy the best of appliance. You plug them to the socket outlet. Few hours later, you find that it darkens. There's a carbon settlement. Now, this is not a platform to share that. At the right time, we will come up with an education on that. All right. Okay, so the utility provider also has a responsibility. Like I said, the cables have been cut. I have many pictures of electricity, pole-mounted distribution transformers that have their earth cut. What it means is that the utility providers do not do effective monitoring of their systems. I'm an electrical contractor. I'm guilty of one, because when distribution network is constructed, the design is that every 10th pole, if you count 1, 2, 3, 4, every 10th pole must be grounded. Aside the neutral earthing of the substation, every 10th pole, the first cable that you see is supposed to be connected to earth. That is to reduce the path through which that fault current will have to travel all the way to the substation. Because the longer it takes for the fault current to get to the substation, the longer or the more life is at risk. So then you provide a lot of them so that when the fault current reaches the nearest one, it will return and cause the protective devices to trip. But unfortunately, because of poor supervision and all that, I don't remember the last time I saw a 10-pole grounded. I go around me, I do a lot of these checks. For the ones that are there, it's been cut. To the extent that substation earthings are being cut. Okay, so it is their responsibility to ensure proper monitoring, effective predictive and preventive maintenance of their network. And then the citizenry, like Commander said, it's one of your slogans. He said, you see something, you say something. So as I walk by a substation and I see somebody, an unscrupulous person trying to tamper with something, I should be able to question him what you are doing, because as far as I know, he doesn't have anything to show that he works for ECG or NETCO or any of the utility providers. So when you see people around substations, try and ask questions, especially when it is within your community, because you are connected to that. What happens is that immediately they cut that cable, your life is in danger. And when that cable is not there and there's an electrical fault, it's an instant fire. It's not something that will take long. Some electrical faults take time to manifest into an undesired whatever. But when it is an earth fault, and then the circuit protective conductors are not there, it's an instant fire. So I said the last time I met some of your team, I said a lot of the fires that we record in our markets are, number one, as a result of what we call high resistance connections. And most high resistance connection mostly on the neutral cable and not on the live. If you connect anything to power now, and there's a loose contact on the neutral, what happens is that it causes a very high voltage to flow within your premises. The appliance may not be able to withstand that voltage, and what will happen is that they will just give in, and the next is fire. So the second one is poor earthing, because most of the time when there's fire incident, we go there, we correct it, and then the next moment people build again, and then they are connected to electricity again. We don't do forensic audit enough. We don't zero in on what the problem is. Most of the time, the substation has been there for several years, and the neutral earthing, the earth rod that we put in the ground, is steel. It is not copper. It's just steel with some copper cladding. So when you put metal in the ground, it's likely to corrode. So a lot of substations you find around, there's no, like I mentioned, there's no proper predictive and maintenance, whatever. So a lot of them have their earth rods corroded, and so basically they are even not there. So if the market is connected to such a transformer, and the people leave home, they leave whatever, and they leave their appliances, so what happens is that there's so much high voltage within their premises that can cause anything to burn. So the issue goes beyond the premises into the substation. So I have had, and I'm privileged enough to be in a position to push for them to look at it again, but it's taking too long for them to really find solutions, because you see now what they are doing is that when it is cut and they are informed, they connect it with aluminum, and aluminum immediately it touches ground, it doesn't last. If you connect a copper to aluminum and you connect aluminum to the earth rod, it won't take long, it will just turn into powder. And so we need to now as a country research and come up with the best way possible. I traveled not too long ago to just here, Nigeria, and I found that there's a company that produces what we call a material that even it looks like copper, but it has a certain component in there that if you cut it, you can't even use it. If you melt it, it won't melt. You can't separate it. And so when these people cut it and they send it to the scrap dealers and they don't see reason why they should buy it, I'm sure they will stop. So that is the only solution, because every transformer must be earthed. That is the practice. You cannot have a transformer without neutral earthing. But unfortunately, these scrap dealers move around and they cut this cable and they expose us to danger. So one solution that ECG has deployed, which I think is also going to help, is fencing of transformers. So you go to areas like Adenta and some parts of the country, you find that, but then they started and they stopped. And I know it has to do with financing. So we all have to help in this regard. Now, conclusion. Given the fact that an electrical incident, be it fire or electrocution, and electrocution is when you die as a result of electric shock or electrical incident, the effect that it has on livelihood, I think that it is time as a nation we treat electrical safety as a national security concern. We must treat electrical safety as a national security concern. I'm sure you have so many examples. The classical one is the former Ministry of Foreign Affairs building. The resources that will be needed to bring down that building, you have no idea. That resources could be used to build schools, hospitals, and help in other areas of our sectors of our economy. So then, it is apart from the things, the documentation and things that have been lost, you even require more financing to be able to bring down that building. So I think that it is time as a country we all look at it as a national security concern, and then to do this we need to be able to have a collaborative enforcement. Today everybody knows fire service certificate is the highly patronized certificate in Ghana when it comes to public buildings. Everybody wants fire safety certificate. I know mostly it's because of their insurance policy. The Energy Commission, the Ministry of Works and Housing also has a certificate they issue, which is called classification. Every contractor in this country is required to have one classification or the other from the Works and Housing. And then the Energy Commission has their own. Today, they are enforcing the Section 9 of the Electrical Wiring Regulation. They are requiring all buildings 10 years and above to undergo mandatory inspection and testing of the premises. I'm aware that they've sent out several letters to companies or institutions to embark on that. And I don't know whether the fire service has received theirs already. Yes. So it is mandatory. The law requires that every building 10 years and above must be inspected and tested. 3 years after the 10 years, up until 30 years. It is only when you adhere to this requirement that you can be sure of your safety and that of your property. Okay, and then we also have the National Insurance Commission. So what I think we should do is that the National Insurance Commission, the Ghana National Fire Service, the Energy Commission, and the other stakeholders will work together. Ghana Fire Service must make the requirement for fire service certification. They must make electrical safety compliance certificate a requirement for fire safety certification. When the person applies, because your assessment that you do doesn't include the electrical bit of the premises. So then when the person applies, we should be able to ask him to bring a test report for the electrical installation. If the report comes, and also, Energy Commission has come up with what we call electrical safety compliance. It came about 3 years ago, but unfortunately the enforcement has been slow. It is supposed to be the case that when you go the same way you find fire certificate in hotels, receptions and all that, you also find electrical compliance certificate which confirms to you that the building is safe. If you go to a hotel and you don't find such certificate, what it means is that it's risky to sleep in that hotel or any public building without that. It means that it is risky to be in that premises. So if we work together, you demand that as part of the requirement to issuing fire certificate. I'm sure that people will really patronize it and they will have safe systems in this country. Public Procurement Authority is also another entity that issue what we call PPA certificate today. Nobody gets electrical contracts, especially public contracts, without showing that you have been classified by PPA. So PPA also can also come in and also demand for electrical test report as a requirement for renewing of electrical contractor's license as a means of renewing your PPA registration. So electrical safety is a collective responsibility. All of us work together and then we can achieve effective and safe electrical systems in Ghana. No institution can do it alone. The Energy Commission cannot do it alone. They are understaffed with respect to the implementation of the LI 2008. They've done some good work. Now they have offices in all in Western region, in the north and in Kumasi. They are still growing, but I think that we all need to support each other so that we can have safe and reliable electrical system. Thank you very much.
I believe we can do it better for Mr. Awal. Thank you so much, Mr. Awal Sakib Mohammed. Indeed, electrical safety is not a one-man's job. It behoves on all stakeholders to put their hands on deck. Thank you so much. I think it is now time for us to ask our questions. And at this juncture, we'll be receiving your questions whilst Mr. Chairman, at the end of the questions, will help us address them. So we have 2 microphones going round. If you want to have ask a question for the first presenter, second and the third, please, you can go ahead. Please, the usher should help us bring the chairs and the table here. The chairs, at least